Hi everybody. I'm here with Malcolm Friend, friend, poet, graduate, soon to be, and VSW member. So, Malcolm, do you have any other names you're known by?
Oh man, I wish you hadn't asked that. Well, I have a couple other names I'm actually known by. Back home with high school friends, I am known as BC Malcolm.
Mm,
Um, don't ask for the details because you're not gonna get them.
okay.
And here in VS Dub, I am known as Sexy Ass Malcolm.
Is it sexy, huh? Who gave you that one? I forgot. Actually, I did forget.
It was actually given to me by a former VSW member. She was a senior at the time, and at the end of my freshman year, we had one last meeting, and the exercise was pick one member that of VS Dub that you would dip in chocolate, to go along with our tradition
Hmm.
of dipping celebrities in chocolate. And when it got to her, she took a couple handfuls of chocolate, just cupped them in her hands, and said I would dip sexy ass Malcolm in chocolate, and just dropped all the chocolate right on top of me.
That is excessive.
Yes.
But so I guess that brings me to my next question. Why would you join, or why did you join Band of a Spoken Word?
Well, I had been writing poetry since like my sophomore year of high school, but I hadn't really had a lot of friends who wrote poetry in high school, so I was really kind of just by myself, and that's not a great way to grow as a writer.
Hmm.
And so at the org fair, the fall organization fair, my
Yes.
freshman year, I saw the poster, the board for Vandy Spoken Word. I walked over to it immediately, and actually, one of the people who was manning the board was the same person who dubbed me "sexy ass
So
Malcolm."
it was a trap.
It was a trap, like
All
Star Wars. It's a trap.
it's a trap.
But yeah, I had wanted to be part of a larger community of writers,
Mm.
and this was really the first opportunity I had to be in that sort of community. At the time I really was not as aware of the English department's creative writing courses.
Hmm.
So I mean that's something that I found out later in that year. But this was VSW was really the first place where I could be in a community of writers to help me grow as a writer.
Yeah, we're very big on community at VSW. Um, so all right, here's a harder question.
Oh
And,
no.
oh yes, oh yes. In 4 words and one vowel sound.
And one vowel sound?
Yes, I told you it's a hard
Oh
question.
god.
In 4 words and one vowel sound, describe your poetic style.
4 words and one vowel sound.
Yes.
My poetic style. Um Political,
Mm,
cultural,
mm.
familial,
Ooh.
and one more word.
Anecdotal.
Anecdotal. There you go. Thank you, Brian.
And what about that vowel sound, though?
Vowel
The vowel
sound?
sound's the most
Vowel
important part. That comes from the soul.
Ooh.
I
No, not I. Ooh.
I know. All right. So, inquiring minds wish to know: is there a musician or song that especially inspires you, or that you like to read their work and listen to them before you write a poem? Or
Oh wow.
I
Wow.
know this might be a long one. So.
This could I could go on and on about musicians who inspire me.
Who's someone you've listened to recently then?
Very recently, Ismael Rivera.
Mm.
He was a. I guess you could say salsa, but he was really early. It was before the whole. It was really before the salsa movement in New York had started that he started his career. He was big into Afro Puerto Rican music styles, notably bomba and plena, uh, two styles that he incorporated into his music when he was part of a larger group with Rafael Cortijo, Cortijo y su combo. They incorporated a lot of Afro Puerto Rican music into sort of a larger band style.
Yeah.
And then when Rivera went off and had his own career, still continued to do that, and he's been someone I've been listening to a lot lately, and who's really had an impact on my music or my poetry. Yeah.
I was about to say, Malcolm, is there? You working on a secret?
No solo album in the works.
All right, cool. I listened to a little Kendrick Lamar, Miles Davis. So
both great artists, both who have also had some impact on me.
Right. So second to last hard question: what is your favorite poem, and why? And if you don't have a favorite poem, what's a poem that you've read or discovered recently that you like very much?
Oh man.
What's the flavor of the day in terms of favoritism?
Actually, I mean, in terms of favorite poem, I don't think I could really narrow it down to one poem, but if I absolutely was forced to at gunpoint,
which is right now.
You
can't see the gun, yeah. but it's
there. It's there. I would say Boricua en la Luna by Juan Antonio Corretel. That poem for me is really it's a poem that is huge for Puerto Ricans who are familiar with it, because it's really a poem about diaspora. Mm-hmm. The final lines are like, in translation, are basically, and I shout this, to the world, I would be Puerto Rican even if I was born on the moon. And so, I mean, it was written at a time when Puerto Ricans were really starting to migrate to New York City, to the United States. I think it was still before the first, like, really, really big Puerto Rican migration to the United States. But it's a poem about diaspora, and it's a poem about the kind of community that I've been living in, not just as a Puerto Rican, but as someone of African descent as well. It's a poem about diaspora, and that's something that I've had to live with my entire life.
Right. Interesting. You talk a lot about Puerto Rico in the interview, but as well in your works. And I was interested in knowing, as a fellow poet, when you draw upon your culture and other influences such as that, do you see yourself as either advertently or inadvertently defining or helping or adding on to it? Because there are some people who's there for, because I know you've been published in like the Vanderbilt Review. What was the poem that was most recently?
Right, Cuando yo no hablo Spanish.
Right, and so in that aspect, there are many people who their only contact with Puerto Rican or Latino culture is through that poem. So in an aspect, you are sort of defining what it means to be Puerto Rican. How does it feel to do that, Mal?
I mean, it's actually funny that you ask that, because writing about Puerto Rico is actually something that I did not do until very recently, like the last couple of years, simply because, I'm half Puerto Rican. My dad is Puerto Rican. My mom's African American, and so a lot of the time I felt outside of the culture because I wasn't full Puerto Rican. And I mean, the same goes for African American culture as well, because I wasn't raised in a household with two, or even raised alone by an African American parent. Yeah. A lot of the times I felt alienated by both cultures, but Uh, in terms of adding on to the culture and defining it, I mean, I think all of us, in some way, when we write about whatever cultures that we come from, are saying what those cultures mean to us. And culture, while culture is really it's a big communal thing, it's also a very individual thing in that everyone experiences their culture differently. So for me to, I mean, to say that I've been adding on to Puerto Rican and Latino culture is, I mean, I take that as a compliment first of all, simply because
Okay.
I don't feel like I by myself define the culture, but to have my own stake in the culture and to be one of the voices that I guess people are drawing upon, it's both an honor and it's a huge responsibility because especially
It
for me,
is.
for someone who, first of all, being Puerto Rican in the United States is a lot. And I mean, I say that as if Puerto Rico isn't a U.S. territory, but being Puerto Rican in one of the 50 states is a lot different from being a Puerto Rican from Puerto Rico. But we're all still Puerto Rican, and you know when you have that, you're not only a Puerto Rican who's living in the United States, in one of the 50 states, was born and raised in Seattle, Washington, as far away from Puerto Rico as you can pretty much get.
That's pretty fun.
Without going
It's not
to
Alaska though.
It's not Alaska, thank God. It's South Alaska.
South.
But
That's new.
but when you have that, when you're a Puerto Rican growing up in the United States, and you can't trace, both of your parents cannot trace their lineage to Puerto Rico, to say that you're adding on and helping to define the culture is really intimidating because you're not sure if you're getting it right all the time.
Yeah, that's understandable. So, for you, what's the biggest difference between written poetry and spoken word? Besides
Wow.
the fact, I mean, not just the obvious differences when as an audience member coming in contact with the medium, but also as in creation, is there things that you take into consideration writing a poem for the paper that you do not when spoken word, and also vice versa?
With regards to, I mean, with written poetry, I think that there are certain things that I can do with the words on the page that may not translate to a spoken performance.
That's true.
Unless and this isn't to come at anybody, but unless you're overperforming it. So, for instance, with line breaks and with spacing, you can do a lot more on the page than you may be able to do in a spoken word performance, just because people have the poem right in front of them and can see, oh, he made a line break at over, and so the line is literally over what he wants it to be over. Or with spacing, if you have a large amount of space between one word and another, then that adds to the way that the reader may read the poem. You may not perform it that way, but it adds a certain rhythm to it that you may not get off across in a spoken word performance.
Right. Yeah.
Now, that being said, there are a lot of different things that you can do in a spoken word performance that you don't necessarily do in written poetry that may not come off on the page. A lot of it, for me, has to do with pronunciation of words, for instance. Especially with regards to Spanish for me, because Puerto Ricans don't pronounce things the same way as, necessarily other Hispanics do, other Latinos do. So there are a lot of words on the page that, when I say them aloud, aren't pronounced the way that I've written them, quote unquote. A lot of letters that I drop off, S's and D's mostly, that get just dropped off, or letters at the end of words that get transformed into another sound. And when you have that on the page, you don't really get that. I like when Garrett Hongo visited Vanderbilt last year.
Hongo.
Yeah, one of the opening poems from his most recent collection. What was it? Oral History. there's a lot of pigeon in that, and the way that he reads it and pronounces it isn't necessarily the same way that a reader who's not familiar with with pigeon would pronounce it. So there are a lot of things that you can do spoken that you can't necessarily do on the page either.
Mm, that's true. Um, let's see. I heard you recently got an award from Vanderbilt. What's that about?
Yeah. I got the Merrill Moore Award for poetry. And I just, actually, funny story behind that is that I did not know that I had received the award this morning. I work with one of my friends, JR, another member of Vandy Spoken Word.
Yes, though.
Yeah, we work in the admissions office together, and he walks in and says, "Oh yeah, congratulations, by the way. I'm sure you've heard on the award." I'm like, "Wait, what?" It's like,
what
no,
award?
Yeah, no. I'm like, "What award?" It's like, "Oh, I'm sure you checked." And I'm like, "No, I haven't checked my email yet." And so he shows me his phone, like he's got it opened up on his phone, and it's just like this award, this email from it's from Margaret Quigley, but it's from Lorraine Lopez through her because she has the English listserv and whatnot.
Right.
But they're announcing awards for the Academy of American Poets Prize. They're announcing fellowships for third year for MFA students. And then I see underneath, one of these awards, Merrill Moore Award for Poetry, Malcolm Friend, and I'm like, what? What?
Me?
Yeah, and then I end up checking my email. And I have that email in my inbox because I'm on the English listserv. And then I have an email from one of my current professors, saying congratulations, and I'm just like, what just happened here? But yeah, the Merrill Moore Award for poetry, I think it's been given in the past to either graduating seniors or rising juniors and seniors. But I think in the past few years, at least since I've been here, I've only seen it for graduating seniors. But
congratulations. Do you know who Merrill Moore is? I heard he was part of some sort of group.
Oh, yes.
Poetic group in the 1920s here at Vanderbilt.
Yes, the Fugitives,
The Fugitives?
Yes, which included Robert Penn Warren.
Yes, that guy. He has some interesting ideas.
Yeah.
So I hear that there's talk of you starting a new Fugitives.
Man.
On Vanderbilt's campus.
Man, I would love to be able to start up a new Fugitive.
Also known as the Fugees.
Yes, the Fugees. Fujila.
All right, Malcolm. Well, right now, just a couple rapid fire questions. Make sure that you're on your toes. I know you're sitting down, but we as poets just need to keep on our toes.
My toes are on the ground still, though, so we're good.
We're good. Abstract or blunt?
Blunt.
Pen or pencil?
Pen.
North or south?
North.
Black or gold?
Black.
Are you sure?
I'm very sure.
Okay. I think that was it for rapid fire. Okay, what poem is your favorite to perform?
Oh man. See, now that people are just gonna think I'm all about Puerto Rico and nothing else, because Boricua in America. No, I mean it's a poem that every time I performed it, I've gotten a great response to it, and I mean it's really one of one of the first poems that I really wrote where I started to focus on Puerto Rico. So, having that poem is great. I love it. I love performing it. It always gets a great response. So.
Okay. So I believe. Just one more question. What is the best in life? You
I remember that, yeah. More. Stephen Dobbins, we love you.
Stephen Dobbins. Thanks again to Stephen Dobbins for coming to Vanderbilt if he hears this.
Yes, if he somehow gets a hold of this.
He's on our Tumblr. All right, before we go, any shout outs to anybody, VSW people, friends from back home, the feds?
Oh no, never shout out the feds. Never.
Come on.
Never. If I shout out the feds, it's gonna be a Calle 13 style, so let's not go there. But shout out to Vandy Spoken Word first and foremost. It's been a great 4 years. We have gone hard all 4 years.
There's been some. Well, let's not talk about that.
We've gone hard at some point all 4 years. So shout out to my homies. Shout out to to J.R. Mahung, to Jarrell Johnson, the whole damn sign. Shout out to Chris Ufana back home. Shout out to Olga Maria Morales Garcia back home. I think that's all I got in terms of shout outs.
All right. You can catch Malcolm. Where you going?
The University of Pittsburgh.
You can catch him there and here for the time being. Thank you all for listening. We go hard lyrically.
Wait. Can I give one more shout out to Terrence Hayes and Lynn Emanuel for accepting me into the Pittsburgh MFA program?
All right. You heard the man. Thank you for your time, Malcolm.
Thank you, Brian.